The one-day classic season is in full gear, and thus far we've witnessed some memorable moments, starting with the surprise finish at Milan-San Remo.
Pozzato may well have created the surprise here inside 50 metres. It's Pippo Pozzato gets the win.
Then at the next meeting, the race favourite didn't disappoint.
Well, this is it now. Hoster's gone and Bonen's got his will. Here comes win number 12 of the year. Tom Bonen earns the applause of the nation.
And last week we witnessed tragedy before a new hero was born amidst one of the most dramatic races of recent years.
Oh, what's happened?
It's
Then George, yes, it's Incapi.
His handlebars snapped. His handlebars snapped.
Well, this is an absolute tragedy. He can't believe it, but boy, does he deserve it. Fabian Cancellara wins Paris-Roubaix.
And now the next task is at hand as the peloton tackle the South Limburg Hills at the only Dutch major classic. The Amstel Gold race lacks cobblestones, but is known for its 31 short, steep climbs. Last year, it was the Italian Danilo De Luca who emerged from the fogged-out race to claim top honours. This year, another competitive field lines up for their shot at arriving first atop the Cowberg. Cyclism Sunday's coverage of the 41st edition of the Amstel Gold race is next on OLN. Yes, from the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix, it's on through Belgium and up now into northern Holland on the borders of Germany for the 41st running of the Amstel Gold race. The French won the first edition back in 1966. I think they'd like to find the same form again. I'm Phil Liggett. Alongside me is Bob Roll. Bob, I remember the first race. I'm not saying you rode it, but you did ride the Amstel Gold race.
I was in the winning breakaway one year. Jelle won that edition. Of course, I did not. I got dropped and finished way back in the field. But the Dutch are completely crazy about cycling, and this is their one-day festival of cycling, the biggest race in Holland. 31 climbs, very narrow, steep climbs they are. A great field, explosive race course. We're going to have a great day of bike racing.
Well, at the start this morning, it was raining in Maastricht. The riders late to sign on. They didn't want to leave those team buses, but they're on the road now. The roads are extremely narrow. Now, there are no clear favourites today, I don't think. There are plenty of Dutch riders would like to achieve. There's also one man I hope we see in the frame because I like him. Alejandro Valverde is a possible winner today. This is where he wants to stretch his legs on the small hills and just see if the form is coming nicely for the big tours upcoming in May and through the month of July, of course. 2 wins already for him. He's feeling a bit frisky, but will he feel frisky enough on the hurly-burly of the narrow roads of South Limburg? Bob.
The pre-race favorite has got to be Paolo Bettini, the cricket from Italy. On the Quick-Step team, they've had a lot of success this year, including Bettini himself winning 2 stages on the fly of Tirreno Adriatico. On stage number 3, he had a very tough crash that he's still trying to recover from. He did a great job when Tom Boonen won the Tour of Flanders, doing great teamwork. Let's not forget about the former world champion Igor Osterloa, Team Barlow World. He's had a couple of lean years, but he's back on good form this season, looking to add a big race win to his palmares, and this would be a good one at Amstel Gold Race.
But you know, the Dutch riders are the ones who know they've got to achieve here, and in fact the Rabobank team especially, and they have a terrific team. Michael Bogart, second for the last 3 years. He's also added another second in 2000. He beat Lance Armstrong to the win in 1999. He's also had a 3rd place. Eric Decker at 2001, the last Dutchman to win this race. Oscar Freire, well, he'd had 6 wins by this time last year. He's not doing too badly this time out. He's got 3, and this course, although not his favourite course, who knows, he might come good in the end here. But they are good, and not forgetting either Thomas Decker or Juan Antonio Fletcher, also on the team today. They can fire from a number of decks today, and they can play a lot of cards. OK, let's have a look at the route, Bob, because this is a difficult route. We're right in the south of the country.
And way up in the north of Europe. But this is the hilly part of Holland. You don't think of Holland as being anything but flat, but don't tell the bike racers. 3 circuits around this, including the finishing climb, the Coburg 3 times. Also, the Keutenberg is a very tough climb as well. Maastricht to Valkenberg, a very tough bike race.
Yes, like all of the hills in this region of Europe, not very steep, but certainly very hard, up to 25% some of these climbs. There's the undulations, looks like my back teeth there as we race towards the finishing line.
There it is, the Cowberg. That will finish off the race, but they'll do it a couple of times before they get there. And you can see that the distance, 253 kilometers, is about 157 miles. And that's from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to New Orleans, Louisiana. 25 teams, 198 riders. 31 climbs, known as the Little Climbs, Bergjes, 40 editions, 17 Dutch winners, the last being Eric Decker, a ways back now in 2001.
Well, it was a wet start in Maastricht for the riders as they headed off towards the racecourse proper, and after 53 kilometres, a breakaway. Christophe Moreau was on the tack a year ago, in again, along with Erwin Thijs, Michael Albacini, Bram Smits of T-Mobile and Rennie Wessinger of the skilled Shimano team. By the time they got through Valkenbergen on the Coburg first time, they had a lead of 11 minutes. Next time around, though, they were down to only 3 riders. Rennie Wessinger disqualified for taking pace back to the group after a flat tyre, while Christophe Moreau had been dropped on an earlier climb. And the lead now less than 5 minutes. Now, here's what happens when you take the wrong road behind the public in the Amstel Gold Race. This is a Gerolsteiner rider. He goes round the back of the pub car park, manages to find his way around the corner, gets back in the race. And soon after that, the leaders were on the Bemleberg, and it was here where the 2 remaining riders said goodbye to Bram Smits, leaving just Michael Albacini and Erwin Thijs up front. Well, the race has come alive in the last 10 kilometres or so, and right in the distance there are the 2 surviving members of the original breakaway of 5. And there's the catch now. It's been a very brave move by the man who's wearing number 1 because of the fact that last year's winner, Danilo De Luca, didn't start today. He's planning on an assault on Flèche Wallonne. So that is Michael Albacini of Leaky Gas. The other rider who survived with him is the Unibet.com rider, Erwin Thijs. Christophe Moreau already in the sag wagon, dropped on the last climb of the Cowberg, and he is now retired. And so we have a new leading group, Bob, but the whole peloton is right behind them.
The whole peloton still chasing hard, but T-Mobile been very aggressive. That's Andreas Clear on the front of the bike race, as well as the CSC rider, and Juan Antonio Flecha. He's the Rabobank rider. He's a Spaniard who is a classic specialist. Albacini and Thijs just being caught. That was a great ride by those 2 men. Erwin Thijs on the Unibet squad, and of course Michele Albacini on last year's winner, Danilo De Luca's squad, the Liquigas Bianchi team. Here's the peloton. You can see the pressure on in the front. The tempo controlled throughout the day by the Rabobank squad, and they've placed a man in this very select group here in Juan Antonio Flecha.
Well, it looks like we're getting 6 riders working clear here. This has been a very difficult race to read over the last half an hour. All of the riders really being under the control of Rabobank, trying to get Michael Bogart away. Then they changed direction, the wind cut them in half, and a group did go clear, but only one Rabobank had made the split, and that might be why the race is coming back under control. Now we're just on 50 kilometres from the finish here. You can see by the roads the rain has gone, but there's a lot of floodwater lying around. Pozzato has been extremely alert here, made the move very quickly, and the move really, Bob, was forced by Stefan Wessermann, who, by the way, is a Swiss man now. He's changed his nationality.
He was born and raised in Germany, but has moved to Switzerland for perhaps the banking advantages of that country. But he is a Swiss rider now, but still on the same team, T-Mobile.
Well, we're just getting underway here as the Amstel Gold Race starts to unfold, but plenty more climbs for the riders to tackle. We'll take a short break and come back with more. Also coming up on today's Cyclism Sundays, he's a young, talented rider who has high hopes in this year's Tour de France. Bob Roll has a closer look at the Spanish star Alejandro Valverde. We'll update you on all the Americans' progress, including the latest on George Hincapie. He crashed hard at last week's Paris-Roubaix, and the steep climbs of the Amstel, including the finishing ascent up the Cowberg. This awaits the riders. That's all coming up on today's Cyclism Sundays. And welcome back to Little Switzerland. We're with the Amstel Gold Race in Holland today here on OLN. But what about last weekend and Paris-Roubaix? That was one of the most dramatic for a while. Not only did poor old George Hincapie crash rather badly in the Carrefour de l'Arbre, but his 2 Discovery teammates who were in that chasing group, they were disqualified from the race as they approached the train tracks with 10 kilometres to go and the gates had come down. They decided to go through the closed gates. Fabian Cancellara, he appeared to get through okay, and he was in the lead at the time. There's no doubt it was a controversial decision, but the rules are quite clear, you know. If the level crossing gates are down, the riders must stop. Had Cancellara been stopped, he would have been given the same time gap on a restart. What do you think, Bob?
If you read the rules to the letter of the law, Tom Boonen's group should have been disqualified as well, and we can plainly see that they snuck through the barriers before they had come up. The official was there to wave them through, but what if a train was coming from the other direction? So the letter of the law and the interpretation of the officials, always there's a little bit of gray area there, and I think they've interpreted incorrectly in this case.
Well, I think there was certainly a lot of grey area, but the rules are quite defined. Well, we'd like to hear your opinion, and you can give it too, so go to olntv.com and do our web there and tell us whether you agree with the ruling or not. And we're talking about the disqualification at 10 kilometres to go of Leif Hoster, Peter van Petergem and Vladimir Gusev, and they were disqualified from Paris-Roubaix for going through closed railroad crossing gates. At the moment, you're pretty well split down the middle. Cast your vote today at olntv.com. Well, at least there's no railroad crossings in the last few kilometres of the Amstel Gold race today. But looking at this now, moments ago there was an attack. It came from the grand old man, 37-year-old Martin Den Bakker, quickly joined by Sylvain Chavanel of the French Cofidis team. And now Vladimir Gusev, the hero who was disqualified in that race from Paris to Roubaix, has just joined this group with a few other riders.
A few other riders indeed. There's Gusev right there, right behind him, Eddie Mazzolini from the T-Mobile squad. Gusev, incredible bad luck at Paris-Roubaix, trying to turn that around. There's Paolo Bettini coming across from the peloton, straight across to the breakaway. Gusev, bad luck in Paris-Roubaix to be disqualified when he finished fourth on the day, so looking for a little bit of revenge here on the Amstel Gold race.
Well, this is up to 7 riders in this group now. There's the full list for you, as Schumacher, Stefan Schumacher, who's really on form. He had a win the other week, has got across as well, and that's a good one for the Gerolsteiner boys. And now it looks to me as though this breakaway beginning to develop. We're coming up to around 41 kilometres to go, which means we're approaching the climb now of the Wolfsberg, leaving us with just on 8 climbs to go down to the finish, and plenty of steep climbs there are left behind as well. The riders have been under pressure, Bob, now for about an hour, and it's been a very difficult race to read which of these moves is perhaps going to work.
There's a replay of the catch. Looks like Serge Baguet, the champion of Belgium on the Quick Step squad, getting across to the breakaway there. There's Bettini just in front, and this is a replay of Bettini demolishing the chasers by himself. Look at that acceleration. That's why he's one of the best bike racers in the world and the current reigning Olympic champion.
Well, from the marathon men of the Amstel Gold, here's another marathon for you up on OLN tomorrow, and it is the prestigious Boston Marathon. Hilu Negusi is looking for a repeat, but US Olympic medalist Meb Keflezighi is looking to become the first American to win since 1983. That's the Boston Marathon, coverage provided by John Hancock, live tomorrow morning at 11:30 Eastern Time. Well, the T-Mobile rider at the back there is Sinkovits, and he rides well in this race, as evidenced by a good performance last year. Might want to go one better and climb into the top 10 this year. This breakaway is building in dribs and drabs, and the big noticeable exceptions here, I don't see any Rabobank riders having crossed the gap, and the work they put in to shut down that breakaway, which at one time had more than 11 minutes, it looked as though they were setting it up for Bogart perhaps to get across there. Look at this, not a Rabobank jersey in sight.
You would imagine there would be a big...
At the moment, you're pretty well split down the middle. Cast your vote today at olntv.com. Well, at least there's no railroad crossings in the last few kilometres of the Amstel Gold race today. But looking at this now, moments ago there was an attack. It came from the grand old man, 37-year-old Martin Den Bakker, quickly joined by Sylvain Chavanel of the French Cofidis team. And now Vladimir Gusev, the hero who was disqualified in that race from Paris to Roubaix, has just joined this group with a few other riders.
A few other riders indeed. There's Gusev right there, right behind him, Eddie Mazzolini from the T-Mobile squad. Gusev, incredible bad luck at Paris-Roubaix, trying to turn that around. There's Paolo Bettini coming across from the peloton, straight across to the breakaway. Gusev, bad luck in Paris-Roubaix to be disqualified when he finished fourth on the day, so looking for a little bit of revenge here on the Amstel Gold race.
Well, this is up to 7 riders in this group now. There's the full list for you, as Schumacher, Stefan Schumacher, who's really on form. He had a win the other week, has got across as well, and that's a good one for the for the Gerolsteiner boys. And now it looks to me as though this breakaway beginning to develop. We're coming up to around 41 kilometres to go, which means we're approaching the climb now of the Wolfsberg, leaving us with just on 8 climbs to go down to the finish, and plenty of steep climbs there are left behind as well. The riders have been under pressure, Bob, now for about an hour, and it's been a very difficult race to read which of these moves is perhaps going to work.
There's a replay of the catch. Looks like Serge Baguet, the champion of Belgium on the quick step squad, getting across to the breakaway there. There's Bettini just in front, and this is a replay of Bettini demolishing the chasers by himself. Look at that acceleration. That's why he's one of the best bike racers in the world and the current reigning Olympic champion.
Well, from the marathon men of the Amstel Gold, here's another marathon for you up on OLN tomorrow, and it is the prestigious Boston Marathon. Hilu Negusi is looking for a repeat, but US Olympic medalist Meb Keflezighi is looking to become the first American to win since 1983. That's the Boston Marathon, coverage provided by John Hancock, live tomorrow morning at 11:30 Eastern Time. Well, the T-Mobile rider at the back there is Sinkiewicz, and he rides well in this race, as evidenced by a good performance last year. Might want to go one better and climb into the top 10 this year. This breakaway is building in dribs and drabs, and the big noticeable exceptions here, I don't see any Rabobank riders having crossed the gap, and the work they put in to shut down that breakaway, which at one time had more than 11 minutes, it looked as though they were setting it up for Bogart perhaps to get across there. Look at this, not a Rabobank jersey in sight.
You would imagine there would be a big chase from the Rabobank riders. Here is the head group. Chris Horner, the American, he's on the De Vitaman Lotto team. There's Bettini, Baguet, Chavanel, Schumacher, Mazzolini, Sinkiewicz, Martin Den Bakker, who was putting in some heart attacks. And in the front also Benoit Joachim, there's he for the Discovery team. But like you said, Phil, no Rabobank men. They've been chasing all day, maybe a little bit of fatigue. Fletcher in the last break, but I think they'll be chasing desperately from behind right now.
Well, I reckon that's an understatement, Bob. They should be going berserk right now, because this is a very strange composition of riders, but there are a lot of teams here. This has been a battle of the strong men who have felt good at the moment to get up to this leading group. Serge Baguet rode extremely strongly last week, setting it up for his team, and now here he is on the Wolfsberg. Nasty little climb. This second time the riders have been up it, and the drizzle of the day seems to have gone away here. And Baguet is finding his second life, I think, as champion of Belgium. Looks over his shoulders there. That's Sylvain Chavanel who's looking back to see who's chasing. The bunch is far from out of it yet, but this is a timed effort, and the way this breakaway has formed in ones and twos, it's got a seriously good chance now.
Absolutely, Serge Baguet, winner of the stage of the Tour years and years ago. There's Chris Horner, the American on the Belgian squad, and Benoit Joachim. Crash here, it looks like Joost Postuma, who we saw leading the peloton, must have come down on one of those roundabouts in town. Very narrow roads, very dangerous racing, but he's back on the machine and back up into the second group, and they'll be chasing these leaders. Benoit Joachim coming to the front now. Strong little breakaway, but like we're saying, no Rabobank riders in the field, in the breakaway.
All right, well, we've got this establishing of a lead group over a bunch of 60 that we're talking about a bridge of only 20 seconds at the moment, but the great news is that Horner has made the break, and so too has Gusev and the Benoit Joachim for Team Discovery. May not be the winning break, but it's going to take some fetching back, and Rabobank, the big misses out, are on the attack. We'll take a short break. And welcome back to Cyclism Sundays. Our coverage today here on OLN is of the 41st Amstel Gold race. There are some Americans out on the road as well. Chris Horner rides from Team De Vitaman Lotto, Patrick McCarthy of Phonak Hearing, and back after his broken collarbone in the CSC team is Christian van der Velde. But what about the rest? Let's take a minute now to update you on the latest happenings for all of the Americans as they prepare now for this year's Tour de France on the Subway American Update. And we begin with Bobby Julich. Well, his next race will be one of the classics coming to you from Belgium on April the 19th, and that is La Flèche Wallonne. And Dave Zabriskie, the early leader of the Tour de France last year, he's chose the Tour de Georgia, April the 18th through 23rd, for his preparation. Bob.
Floyd Landis, already the winner of Paris-Nice and the Tour of California this year, will also be at the Tour of Georgia, April 18th through the 23rd. Big George Hincapie falling hard in Paris-Roubaix in a spectacular crash caught on film for all the world to see. Initial reports that he had some serious damage to his collarbone have proven to be untrue. He'll be back for the Dauphiné Libre June 4th through the 11th, where he begins his Tour de France preparation.
Well, that's certainly good news for George. And Tom Downison, her teammate of George Hincapie, he's out now to defend his title he got last year in the Tour de Georgia. That's running April the 18th through 23rd. And by the way, OLM will give you a 2-hour special on that on Cyclism Sundays in a couple of weeks' time. And Levi Leipheimer, well, we can't find out exactly what Levi is doing since he finished 8th in the Sea Otter. He's not appearing on the start list, so I figure he must be taking a little time out before he builds up for the Grand Tours.
Chris Horner, his next race will also be Flèche Wallonne along with Bobby Julich on the 19th of April. His teammate on David Monlato, Freddie Rodriguez, will begin his race program once again at the Tour of Georgia, April 18th through the 23rd.
And that's the American Update brought to you by Subway. Well, and Chris Horner is in the breakaway here, but there's an awful lot of work being done by Rabobank. Sylvain Chavanel has just flatted, which is a great shame, Bob, because he's gone right through the peloton now as the Rabobank boys have created the damage.
Absolutely. We thought that Rabobank would be chasing because they missed out on the break. This is their home race. Rabobank, the Dutch squad, the only Dutch squad in the Pro Tour, top 20 teams. Here's an attack by one of the riders from the Discovery team. That might be Gusev, but it looks a bit to be like Benoit Joachim, the Luxembourger who was in that breakaway. If you're in the break of 10 riders, just a little bit ahead of the peloton, and there's no Rabobank men in this race, you know they're going to chase.
Well, this is the next climb now, the Luerberg, and this takes us through 40 kilometres from the finish. Very strange race this year, an exciting one nonetheless, the Amstel Gold race, the way it's happening. And this is Stefan Wesserman here. He keeps on stirring up trouble the minute it all goes to pieces. And it looks as though we've got a rider. There might be Tian Kannemeyer there from Barlow World trying to tag on to Wesserman. Try and try again, sooner or later, the elastic will snap.
Absolutely, Stefan Wesserman missing out on the race that he won, the big classic of the Tour of Flanders. He missed out on that because of a little bit of a slow start to his season, but he has really been attacking so far in the Amstel Gold race. He's got Andreas Clear in the group. Andreas Clear said he was going to win the Tour of Flanders. That didn't happen. And here we see one of the Cofidis riders also bridging up to this little breakaway, Barlow World, as well as Stefan Wesserman from T-Mobile.
Whereas Leonardo Bertagnoli, the rider who's tagged on the back there for Cofidis, still not too sure who that rider is from Barlow World, but this is a big chance for Barlow World. Remember, they're a continental trade team, very disappointed they never finally got into the Giro d'Italia as a wild card. They brought on board as manager the very much respected former amateur world champion Claudia Corti to look after them this year. Changed the colours, changed a lot of the riders, and still no ride in the Giro d'Italia. So they want to do a good ride today. Igo Astaloa is on form. He's had a win already, and they're pretty pleased with the way the team is running. So we'll see what they can do with this move, see which one they've got in the break. There's Bogart, second wheel here at the moment. He's looked very good all day, Bobby. The team have worked for him, and if they can present him at the right moment of the finish, there's no one knows the Amstel Gold better than him. There he is.
Two former winners right on the front of the peloton, Eric Decker and Nico Bogart from the Rabobank squad. T-Mobile's been very aggressive today so far. This is a tough bike race, a lot of steep hills. Paolo Bettini is right there in the front as well. There you see Michael Bogart, second last year. He's been second on so many occasions we've lost count. We think it's at 4 or 5. And Eric Decker also a winner of this race and the last Dutchman to do so.
So the main field then, they're topping the Luerberg now. There's still 40 kilometres to go to the line. Little group trying to get clear, but this race is still up for grabs. We'll go for another break. And we're back. Phil Liggett here alongside Bob Roll for the 41st edition of the Amstel Gold Race. The youngest classic on the calendar, beginning back in 1966, but next week it's the oldest one-day classic, Bob, and I have to say, one of my favourites.
Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the oldest one-day classic on the racing calendar. Such a prestigious race to win. A lot of times we see some of the Tour de France contenders come out for the first time in the year to see what kind of form they got. Last year it was won by Alexander Vinokourov with a long breakaway with Jens Voigt. Vinokourov took that form and went on to win 2 stages in the Tour. So we should see a very competitive event this year.
Yeah, you're right. The first chance to see the Grand Tour candidates in the thick of the action. And just to remind you, it's next Sunday. OLN will be in Belgium for the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Tour de France favourite Alexander Vinokourov returns to defend his title, plus highlights of the midweek Flèche Wallonne. Cyclism Sundays on OLN next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, we're looking now at Martin Den Bakker here now, who's trying to liven up the peloton. They've caught everybody in that leading group except Stefan Westermann, who just refuses to go back in the peloton. As we start now the climb of the Gulpenberg, that'll be followed by the Kreisberg. And this is a notorious climb here in the Amstel Gold race. And Martin Den Bakker, I would say, Bob, I've lost count the times you will have raced up here.
Many, many times, at least 15 times probably in his career. He's been a pro for a very long time, 37 years of age. Stage winner in the Tour a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. But Martin Den Bakker, one of the stalwarts of Dutch cycling. We see a lot of the Dutch riders in the peloton on the front of this particular bike race because it is the biggest race in Holland. Rabobank's been trying to control the pace throughout the day, and you can see how narrow these rows are. Still a pretty big group, all of them chasing Stefan Westermann.
Well, we reckon around about 60 riders there, just finding his legs not responding as well they might, was Marcus Zerberg. But Stefan Westermann coming up towards the summit here. These days we've got it nicely barriered back because normally the crowd flood onto the side of this road. This is Zerberg here on the left of our picture. You get some idea of the angle of the gradient. We're on the steepest point at 15% now. And the Rabobank riders also are beginning to fall back here. And it's not surprising with the amount of work they've been done. This is Fletcher himself now, who was superb earlier on, but now it's a matter of get home as best you can. Most of the work at the front bar has been done by Eric Decker, who won the race in 2001.
Eric Decker has been doing the tempo for the last 10 kilometers, chasing a very dangerous breakaway with Oosterlohe and Westermann. Westermann has not been caught. Fletch has done about 100 kilometers of work throughout the day, chasing down all the breakaways and really struggling on that climb. But you can see how important this race is to Rabobank. He's struggling to get back into the chase group, being led by his teammates. They are chasing Stefan Westermann. Westermann missing out on his favorite race, the Tour of Flanders this year, and so he's trying to amend those things and do a great Amstel Gold race.
Well, that was Fletcher there, who's gone off the back now. He might get back, but he's not going to be a lot of use now in the firepower for Rabobank, but the race is still together. This is a very, very interesting pattern today. There's at least 60 riders in that peloton as they circle away now from the Gulpenberg. The next challenge will be the Kreisberg, and that will take us on to the last 4 remaining climbs after the Kreisberg. And this is the area now where any attack could work, but so far they've actually gone on to them very, very quickly. Stefan Westermann has prized out. It was down to 6 seconds when they pulled the other 2 back. Oosterlohe stood up and went back, and now here we are back with the leader in the town of Gulpen. 28 kilometres covered. Westermann actually pulling away from the field. It could be back to his halcyon days of riding in Paris-Roubaix when he almost became the first German to win. Well, it's time for a short break, but when we return, Bob Roll has more on one of cycling's biggest rising stars. I'm talking about, of course, Alejandro Valverde. See you soon. And welcome back to the Amstel Gold race. We're way in the south of Holland today here on Cyclism Sundays. Well, he's riding today as a race favourite and will be a huge favourite in the upcoming Tour de France. But why is Alejandro Valverde labelled the next big phenomenon? Bob Roll has more.
At just 25 years of age, Alejandro Valverde is thought to be one of the most talented cyclists of his generation. Valverde is a rare breed, and what makes him so exciting is his unique ability to both sprint with the best of them and climb high into the mountains. This jack of all trades began his professional career with Team Kelme in 2002, and after only a year in the pro peloton, his breakout season in 2003 made him a highly touted future star of the sport. That season, he won 2 stages at the Tour of Spain.
Valverde is going to take this from absolutely nowhere.
He went on to finish in 3rd place on the podium for the overall classification. He carried that momentum into the 04 season and racked up 15 more wins on his resume. When the Kelme squad folded due to lack of funds, he signed on to ride for ES Baleares in 2005. After a strong spring campaign, he suited up at the big show for his debut Tour de France appearance. He proved himself as a major Tour contender and captured a stage win to Courchevel, out-sprinting the none other 7 times winner of the Tour, Lance Armstrong.
Alejandro Valverde wins an incredible stage.
After stage 12, he was placed 5th overall and a respectable 3 minutes behind Lance Armstrong, but then a knee injury from a crash on stage 4 forced him to withdraw from the race. It was a sad day for the young rider, but he recovered in time to race at the World Championships, a route which favored the sprinters. Still, he finished second to Tom Boonen, further proving that he is just as dangerous on the flats as on the uphill ascents. Although Valverde will have to hone his time trial skills to challenge at this year's Tour, he will still be watched closely. So far this season, Valverde has collected 2 stage wins and appears to be in great form, coming into the Amstel Gold, where he finished 13th last season. With unlimited potential, the multi-talented Spanish rider is a threat in any race he enters, and today's course might be the perfect fit.
Well, I must say, Bob, anybody who can outsprint Lance Armstrong at the top of an alpine climb like he did at Courchevel last year, he's got to be a man for the future. We'll see. Well, this is a real show of defiance by Stefan Westermann, but as the helicopter pulls back here, how close are the peloton? We think about 17 seconds, and it's all of that right now. We've had sights of David Rebellin getting into the thick of the action as well, Bob. They're all beginning to think they can land this one.
It's anybody's bike race still. Bettini is up there, Pozzato his teammate. Here's our leader, Stefan Westermann, putting in an incredible ride in the Amstel Gold race. This will be a very, very hard thing to do to stay away all the way to the finish line, but he still has Kessler and Clear, his teammates, both of them classic specialists, still in the peloton chasing, led by the team CSC right now. Frank Schleck still in the front of the bike race. Paolo Bettini is there, and we got a lot of hard climbing still to go. But the peloton under the control of Rabobank as well as Team CSC. There's Stefan Westermann, strong legs of the German, already a winner in his career of the Tour of Flanders, perhaps the hardest one-day race in the world.
Well, this is the pain on the face now of the T-Mobile rider. Westermann came close to becoming the German winner of Paris-Roubaix a few years ago. The last man to win that for Germany, still remains back in 1896 now. And Westermann's going to make a sharp left. As you can see, the weather beginning to close in again now, and it all could go wrong here in the last few kilometres, because if the rain falls at this sector of the course, then it's going to be a slippery old ride down to the finish and then up to the top of the Kouwberg. The peloton dodging around, and the riders, well, they don't quite know how to handle this, because the only team that's working as a team right now is Rabobank.
Rabobank, the last team with a number of riders. That's Martin Den Bakker right on the front. Behind him, Eric Decker, the former champion of Holland, won 3 stages in a row in the Tour de France a few years ago, and he's won this race, the Amstel Gold. But it seems like he's sacrificing himself today for the team, and his teammates, Frère and Bugert, still right up there in the front group.
Well, we've seen Thomas Dekker up there. I think we lost Fletcher on that climb. He hasn't come back just yet. The gap is 15 seconds, so he's dropped back 5 seconds here. And this is a very, very active peloton now. Here's the climb in the distance round the Bonner Bend. They might just not see him as he slips over the top here. And so we're on towards the Kruisberg now. These are little climbs which abound. As we move on from the Kruisberg, the next one will be the Eisenbosweg. 17%. It's a steep one, this. A little bit steeper than the Gulpenberg in places. But I must say that Stefan Westermann really is dancing on the pedals today. He must have attacked Bob 4 times before he finally got this breakaway going.
He did, been very aggressive, obviously on a good day, having some good legs, and one of the best classic specialists in the sport of cycling. And as you said, dancing on the pedals. We love to hear that in the United States, Phil. Westermann might not be dancing the last couple of climbs. Look how steep that is. And this will split up the peloton even more. CSC, Team Milram right on the front. Sergei Ivanov, the T-Mobile rider. He's got Westermann up the front. Here's a problem for one of the Rabobank riders, pulling over for some service with the flat tire.
I think it was Thomas Dekker.
Could be Thomas Dekker indeed. And there's the front of the peloton, still chasing a man on great form, Stefan Westermann.
Well, Sergei Ivanov, the champion of the Soviet Union, right on the front there. He's also riding well now. Number 2 at the back here is Patrick Calcagni of Switzerland. While the latest man on the Swiss cycling squad, Stefan Westermann, is out in front. This is the little group now, narrow. Paolo Bettini, he's just behind on the left there with the golden helmet on as the Olympic champion. Has never been far from the front. He's gone in only one move he thought had a chance. He dropped back, but he's dropped back into that lovely watching position, which is where he stays all of the time. He's waiting to make a move. It's only a question of when. That was little Inaki Asasi, by the way, from the Euskaltel team, who is just hanging off the back of the bunch.
Stefan Westermann at 17 seconds. It's hard to imagine being able to hold off the peloton when they're chasing so hard. Alexander Moos, and look at the attacks now coming from Team Milram, right from the front. Steep part of the climb. This is the place to attack, but only if you have the legs.
Well, Milram Really, their leader today is Martin Den Bakker. He's been doing plenty of work up front. And they're still, that sky is getting very, very dark right now. There's another split in the field there because the rider going off was the skilled Shimano rider, Martin Jalingi from Holland. It was his teammate disqualified earlier when he was in the breakaway, sadly, and for getting pace when he came back onto the leading group. That was Rennie Weisinger. 13 seconds the gap. The field is splitting under the pressure as they go over the top of the Kreisberg. The hills are far from over yet, and the winner is still not apparent. Back with the action now and unloading his pockets here as we start the climb of the Eisenbosweg. And this is Stefan Westermann. He's lost about 6 seconds of his lead. The peloton under pressure. They haven't really got it back together since they climbed the Kreisberg. Westermann is doing the ride of his life here. He really is riding well because the peloton is flying.
Absolutely flying under the power of the Rabobank squad, but they vanished from the front a little bit. We saw Thomas Dekker in trouble, Eric Dekker, Michael Bugert, as well as Oscar Freire, the Spaniard on the Dutch team, still in the front. There's Sergei Ivanov in the champion of Russia's jersey, but he won't be doing any chasing at all. His teammate is on the front. Phonak, also the defending champion of this race, and that's the Liquigas team of Danilo De Luca. He's not here. He's trying to prepare himself for the Giro d'Italia in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to show that on OLN. It's going to be a real pleasure to call that with you, Phil.
Yeah, we'll be with you both on Cyclism Sundays, of course, with the Giro, and every day in the week you can sign up for our web streaming. Just go to olntv.com and pick up all the details, but you can watch the Giro every day. We're looking now in the middle of the picture, the champion of Russia. He's been the champion 4 times now, Sergei Ivanov. He's just keeping an eye on everybody. Like, this is a crucial moment of the race now. I would think, Bob, we're going to see Westermann nudge out a few more seconds here.
Garzelli there, Stefano Garzelli, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia, right there on the shoulder of Sergei Ivanov. Right there you can see in the Liquigas jersey, that is one of the best bike racers in the world. And look at the gap now, going out to 30 seconds. This has got to send some panic whistles into the Rabobank riders. There's Michael Bugert still in the middle. They've had to do so much work throughout the day that they're seeming to lose a little bit of power. They're going to have to rally the troops now. Oscar Freire still in the front, and that looks like Thomas Dekker on the wheel of Michael Bugert. And that's Karsten Kroon, the CSC rider, on the left-hand side of your screen. Bettini there still, also in the gold helmet. On the right, here's an attack. Looks like Karsten Kroon.
Bogart also stashing the wheel there as we get a move here on the front. And Ivanov very attentive. Look at Bettini, 4 wheels down. And again, you see Bettini is watching every move. He's such a crafty little rider. I think he would plan to go alone to win this race, and he'd probably go on the climb before, which is the Kutenberg. And here, oh, maybe he's going to go now because Paolo Bettini's decided possibly it's time to contribute to the pace here. He's got Sergei Ivanov. Here it goes. Paolo Bettini, the Olympic champion. They've been waiting for this one, and Bogart is the man trying to reach him. Meanwhile, on the left at 28 seconds is Stefan Westermann.
Stefan Westermann doing an incredible job of resisting this acceleration by Paolo Bettini. He put in 5 pedal strokes and took 2 seconds away from Westermann, but Westermann still hanging tough there. Bugert really struggling to get onto the wheel of Paolo Bettini.
Well, it's almost showdown time in the Amstel Gold, but it's certainly showdown time in the NHL. Just a few days to the playoffs, and we're saving the best for last. Tomorrow, a 1-2 punch featuring Dallas and Detroit. Then LA takes on San Jose. And on Tuesday, the Sabres lash out at the Canes. The NHL on OLN. Coming across the gap here now, it's T-Mobile's Patrick Sinkovits. I know Quickstep were very annoyed when he decided to lead them last year. So annoyed they left him out of the last few races of the year. But he's gone across and he's in the T-Mobile colours now.
Leukemans was the rider from the De Wiedemann Lotto squad. Maybe having a flat tire, calling for his team car, doing a great ride to cover this acceleration. Davide Rebellin coming across to the acceleration of Paolo Bettini, as well as a rider from Phonak. And we see T-Mobile, Sergei Ivanov, the teammate of Westermann, just sitting on the wheel of Bettini. Bettini still on the front doing the chase from this man. Elkenrad, that's the village at the bottom of the Kreuzberg. And this is race is on full gas right now. The peloton realizing the danger of trying to chase down Stefan Westermann on a great form today.
But Stefan Westermann still leads the Amstel Gold into the last 12 or 15 miles of the day. He still has a chance because the infight behind is continuing. So we'll wait. Welcome back, and there's the gap. Stefan Westermann holding on to a scant 13 seconds. He's never been more than 30 ahead of the field, and some 13 riders seem to be getting themselves into the driving seat. Among them is David Rabelin and Fabian Weckmann. The Olympic champion Paolo Bettini, Sergei Ivanov is here, and so too is the eternal second in this race, Michael Bogart.
Michael Bogart still in the front group, one of the last Rabobank riders, so desperate to do well in their home race. Here we see the chase group. Sergei Ivanov won't do a lot of work. Rabobank, that looks like Fabian Weckmann has also found the breakaway. They're chasing Stefan Westermann. Ivanov will just roll through here. He's not doing anything to contribute to the pacemaking. Looking behind him, seeing where this very select group is, coming, trying to get across. There's the Belgian rider that we've been talking about, Loikemans, having a great day. And there's Westermann, our leader, getting up on the slopes of the Fromberg now. Just a very scant few seconds, maybe just less than 10 seconds now.
Well, he's not panicking here. He's just going to keep the pressure on as best he can. They're coming, Stefan, and they're only just in the distance right now. But you never know when they shut down and start to argue amongst themselves. I think that's the best chance now that Westermann has got. He's got to hope for something like that, because there's one or two big names back there who might start to look at each other and say, hey, it's your turn now, and then the gap will open again. Now, this is the group here. As I say, Weckmann and Loikemans are there. So too is Bettini. And Frank Schleck, I think, has got across too. But this has been an interesting combination. But the full-out action, Bob, you see, isn't there.
There's Bettini covering. We saw a huge acceleration. There's the biggest, hardest climb on the race just coming up in a few Ks, the Kuttenberg, and that's where Bettini might be waiting to make his move. Still a pretty big group, but I think that Westermann's little lead is going to start to stretch out from the 11 seconds that it was, and he is still hanging on very tough there. A little acceleration, the time comes down. There's Frank Schleck accelerating, and then they regroup, and Westermann stretches out his lead a little bit more. A really tough ride being put in by Westermann.
Well, just to give you a quick rundown here of the breakaway, Bettini, Bogart, Ivanov, Sinkovich, watch out for him. Balan has come up. That man's got terrific form this year. Frank Schleck, Karsten Kroon, Kees Moerenhout is the Phonak rider in the group. New team for him. Loikemans we've seen, Weckmann, Rebellin, and Samuel Sanchez was the last man to get on. And there's a little bit of a problem at the back, and that's a great shame too, because that is Sylvain Chavanel again with a flat tyre at the back of the peloton. But there's some big names missed out. Asteloa made his move, paid the price, I think, and now he's back in the peloton. And Valverde, who we saw near the front, he also didn't make it. Watch out, because now Bettini, he caused the first split, and here he goes again now on the next climb. And he's going to try and break this group up again, because there's too many boys out for the ride right now.
Bogart looking behind him to see who can contribute to the pacemaking to chase this man down. Bogart has had to try to cover all the accelerations of Paolo Bettini. Look how narrow and dangerous these country roads are. The rain has slicked them up a little bit, making the descents very technical indeed. Bettini now straight onto the wheel of Stefan Westermann. You can see the motorcycles just ahead. They'll be following Westermann. What an incredible acceleration by Paolo Bettini. Not waiting for the Kuttenberg, going a long ways out from the finish line. He is on great form today. We thought he would be. Quick Step, a little bit of bad luck in last Sunday's race in Paris-Roubaix. And it's Bettini trying to put another big result for the Quick Step squad. They've already won the Tour of Flanders and Milan-San Remo with Tom Boonen and Filippo Pozzato.
Well, these are the wastes of the bottom end of Holland here, the area we call Little Switzerland. The hills are all around. There are still two big climbs left here. A counter-attack from the field by Sergei Ivanov. He's taking across with him Frank Schleck there, the champion of Luxembourg. Well, nobody, it seems, is willing to take up the chase, or is David Rebellin going to have a go with Michael Bogart? Every man for himself now as they counter-attack the move by Bettini. He hardly made a secret of that attack. He just has this ability, and they don't seem to be able to control him. The man in the lead is still Stefan Westermann, and the Amstel Gold race, with still two more climbs to come, is up for grabs. Well, the field is stacked today, and it's still anyone's race. Who will prevail? The Italian Paolo Bettini, the Spanish rider Igor Asteloa, or can Rabobank win again on home soil? Stay with us to find out. Welcome back, and look at this, just in time for the catch here, because Paolo Bettini is reaching Stefan Westermann. Two climbs to come. Now, I think Westermann really will be quite pleased to see this man on his own and willing to work with him, and he immediately accelerates. He's going to give Bettini a little chance for a few deep breaths, and then they'll go. Well, they were quick, weren't they?
Very quick indeed. Bettini straight past Westermann. Great form, Bettini. Look at that face of the cricket. You won't see that on a cricket, only on the Italian, known as Il Grillo. Veseman is happy to have him catch him on the flats on a little bit of a descent. I think if he would have caught him on one of the climbs, Bettini would have gone flying right past. And let's see the damage done by Bettini. That seems to be a Gerolsteiner rider. It might be Davide Rebellin, and that's Frank Schleck. Sergei Ivanov, of course, a teammate of the man in the front, Veseman, and Frank Schleck, CSC rider, champion of Luxembourg. So a very select group chasing Bettini and Veseman. Veseman catching a breath of him for himself right now after Bettini came flying across. It didn't take him very long to close that 15-second gap to Veseman.
It didn't. He used tremendous strength, and clearly nobody had the legs back there to go with him because he made no secret of the move. They just couldn't join him. And we've got two national champions here of Russia and of Luxembourg joining it with the rider from Italy there, David Rebellin. No, they say it's the other man, Fabian Wegmann. We haven't been down there yet. Our cameras are shut out in the skies because of the gaps now. It's going to be difficult to bring in the ground coverage because the whole field is not very far behind. Well, Paolo Bettini got third place in the Amstel Gold race in the year 2004. He's always enjoyed this race. It's absolutely to his liking because he loves anything that presents a short hill and then he can get away. That's how he won a stage of the Tour de France last year, and now he's reached the leader, Stefan Veseman. Veseman, I think, delighted somebody came up to give him a hand. We're heading up to the second to last climb of the day now, which is the Keutenberg. 22%. It's going to hurt.
This is the absolute hardest climb out on the course. It's coming after 240 kilometers, just a few Ks from the finish line. If Veseman can stay on the wheel of Paolo Bettini, that will be a fantastic effort. Veseman very aggressive throughout the finale, attacked 4 or 5 times, finally got away by himself, never gained more than about 20 seconds. Here's the chase. You got to imagine that Rabobank is there, 7 seconds behind the Bettini group with Stefan Veseman. We can see Alejandro Valverde still hanging tough in there, as well as Mario Ertz. He's a Dutchman on the Rabobank squad, on the David de Monlala squad. Bettini looking behind, a big chase now. Look at the face on Veseman, struggling to stay on Bettini's wheel.
Well, this is the road which is so narrow, the slopes. The police don't allow any cars down it for the arrival of the event, so that means there aren't too many spectators. You can see why, and you get a good idea of just how steep it is in this area of Holland. It brings a lie to the fact that people tell you Holland is flat. Bettini has made a move here, and he's working hard to make it pay, but I think very shortly we're going to have 5 front runners, and very shortly after that the field are all going to be on them.
Boogert leading the field right there. The man in orange trying to get across to our leaders. Rebellin is there, as well as Sammy Sanchez having a great ride. There's Fabian Wegmann trying to come across. Heinrich Hausler, he did the effort. There is Chris Horner, the American. Thomas Dekker still in the bike race. Chris Horner doing a great ride. And there's Igor Astarloa, the former world champion, who was in an early break. There's Valverde now coming on the top of the Keutenberg, the hardest climb in this bike race.
Well, as the riders charge around South Limburg today, don't forget it's not long before they'll be charging around the whole of Italy. Yes, it's Italy's Tour de France, the Giro d'Italia, and OLN will bring it to you on air and online. Sign up today at olntv.com for exclusive commercial-free live streaming video of the Giro, as well as the other world-class cycling events. And catch the Giro d'Italia on OLN every Cyclism Sunday in May. It's going through now. The new champion of Luxembourg, Frank Schleck, followed by Sergei Ivanov. Behind him is the grand man of this race. He's had 4 seconds, 1/3 and a win. Michael Bogart. He's up in it again this time around. While sat right here at the back of the race now is Karsten Kroon. Used to be a teammate of Bogart.
That's right. He was on the Rabobank squad as a Dutch rider. That's normal for many years in his career. Now he's on the CSC team and having a very good ride in the Amstel Gold race. The Dutch love this bike race. It's their biggest event of the year. The 2 T-Mobile riders now sharing the tempo on the front. Veseman perhaps working for Sergei Ivanov. Look at Bettini, so cool, calm, and collected. Put in the accelerations, demolish the field, Boogert on the wheel. This is an incredible finale.
And this is an incredible ride by Stefan Veseman. He's not fazed at all by the fact that all of these riders hooked up with him. He's still doing all of the lion's share of the work in this breakaway. This is a most amazing ride here by these riders. Just looking here now at the rest of the field. And Thomas Dekker, this is, as he comes up on the outside. Well, Dekker has done well to get here now. He looks very much like Michael Bogart, but he's developing into being a big, strong Dutch rider. So is this the winning break? It might be, because time is running out. In the distance is the peloton. Well, there's time to make changes yet, but we will have a little bit of a break before we face up to the last climbs of the day. Welcome back to what is an extraordinarily tenacious race today in the Amstel Gold. We're looking at Eric Decker here, trying to hang on to any wheels that they throw at him just now, because this breakaway here has been flat out ever since it bridged the gap. This is Oscar Freire. I beg your pardon, because the groups here now are spread all over the summit of the Kutenberg as they dive now to head towards the town of Valkenburg and the final climb. There's so many strong riders who believe they can win this, Bob.
Frank Schlechter on the front. He has great form this year. Look at, he's putting the peloton into serious difficulty there. He is the latest animator. He was having a great spring so far this year, was probably the strongest man in Milano-San Remo, was caught within sight of the finish line on the wheel of Filippo Pozzato. Pozzato went on to win that race, but Team CSC on the front now. Bettini even having a hard time closing the gap up to the man in the front from the CSC squadron. What an incredible ride by Frank Schleck. And there's Vesseman still hanging tough with Sergei Ivanov. I think it's Matthias Klessler, their teammate that they were working for earlier. He has also found the winning breakaway. We'll see if any of the riders behind can catch up. Frank Schleck putting in a huge acceleration. It's still a ways to the finish line, around about 10 kilometers. That would be incredible if he could solo to the finish line.
Well, it would be incredible for Frank Schleck and for Team CSC, who had a great weekend last weekend. This is how the attack happened just moments ago. And as you can see there, the rider trying to get on his wheel is Sinkovits, in fact, but he's not going to make it because Schleck has gone for it by himself. CSC had a wonderful weekend, winning Paris-Roubaix last week and also a top race in France as well. Schleck is carrying on where they've left off, I think. He's having a great start to the year and he's strong.
Paolo Bettini making the juncture now, closing the gap by himself on the front there. He's ran out of teammates. Frank Schleck still soloing up the road a little bit. And you see Michael Bugert, he is watching Bettini very closely. One more climb, and that's to the finish line. So just about anybody's race, there's a very small gap between the chasers, and I'm sure they will be flat out desperately trying to close the gap to Frank Schleck right there, Team CSC. Almost right onto the wheel of the cameraman, going straight past.
Well, as we look here at the face of Frank Schleck, the nearest he's come to winning one of the monuments of the sport when he got third in the Tour of Lombardy towards the end of last year. And that was a great performance, but he's continuing to develop now at 25. In fact, he's just had his 26th birthday yesterday, Frank Schleck, so he's feeling frisky. He's getting old now. As he continues the attack, I'll quickly give you the lineup with 8 kilometers to go. That's about 12 minutes of racing. I'll just give you the lineup of the breakaway behind Schleck: Stefan Vesseman, Ivanov, Sinkovits, Bettini, Bogart, Kroon, Sanchez and Rebellin. And in the chase group is Thomas Dekker. But whether they bridge, that's debatable now. This is the counter-attack coming now from the Phonak rider. And this will be, I'm not too sure who that Phonak rider is. He's the one rider we haven't spotted.
Frank Schleck, 18 seconds now on the chase group. There's Sinkovits, Paolo Bettini. Bettini wondering if maybe he should have countered that move. He is the big name in this breakaway, so Sergei Ivanov as well as Stefan Vesseman will follow just about anything that Paolo Bettini does. There's Carsten Kroon asking the motorbike not to help out the chase from T-Mobile because his teammate is up the road. That's a great ride by Team CSC. There's Bugert. He's run out of teammates himself. Now he's going to have to be very cagey and try to see what T-Mobile's going to do. Ivanov still accelerating to Bettini's wheel. Carsten Kroon. There is Vesseman still on the front. What an incredible ride by the new Swiss professional on the block. Grew up in Germany and changed nationalities just this year.
Well, it looked as though that was the former champion of Switzerland, Alexander Moos, in that chase group for the Phonak team. I could have asked Michael Bogart. He was sat right behind him there talking to the radio. They're a little bit concerned about the proximity of that camera. This is a crucial moment, and we do seem to be having problems with motorbikes this year in the classics, getting too close to the action, although we want to see the pictures, of course. But this is the leader now at 7 kilometers from the line, Frank Schleck. It would be a surprise, but not in its entirety, Bob, because this is a man who is developing now into a really good bike rider. Yet another product from the Bjorn Riise camp.
Yes, absolutely. And another one, Carsten Kroon there. You can see he won't pull through. He won't cooperate. He's just swinging off. A little bit frustrating for Paolo Bettini. He knows that the teammate of Carsten Kroon from CSC is up the road, and now they have to put in an incredible chase of Frank Schleck if they're going to have a chance to win the Amstel Gold Race, any of these men in this group.
In fact, they're saying it's Martin Perdigurlo, the little sprinter. I thought it was from Spain who was in that group. There he is coming through now. Looks a little bit too sunburned there for Alexander Moos. As the riders now line up, look at the concern here on Bogart's face. He's been in this situation for at least the last 4 years, in with a chance of the win. Now, he's had 4 second places. He has had a win. He has had a third. And he's the only man flying the flag now for the Dutch here. And that's, again, a big position for him to be in.
3 T-Mobile riders. They will chase flat out as hard as they can. And that is Vesemund still chasing. I think Sinkovits is their man. He's sitting on. Sergei Ivanov been doing a lot of work. There's an attack now by Michael Bugert trying to get across to Vesemund. Ivanov opening up the gap. It's 17 seconds. So it's Frank Schleck up the road, still hanging tough. Bugert now sensing the danger that Vesemund is going to the finish line. Vesemund doing a lot of work, putting in a big acceleration. We'll see if Bugert has enough energy left to contribute to the pacemaking. They still have to chase that man on the left-hand side of your screen. Frank Schleck putting in a great ride.
Well, Frank Schleck, they waited a long time for a top rider from Luxembourg. They've had Kim Kirken, of course. The great Charlie Gall was their big man. But Frank Schleck here finished 10th in the World Championships 2 years ago. Finally landed the Luxembourg title last year. And now he's being chased down, or at least they hope he's being chased down. And it's Stefan Vesemund doing the lion's share of the work. And he's thinking now of Patrick Sinkovits, the new man on T-Mobile, to see if he can deliver the goods at the finish. So he's gone from the leader of the team now to the workhorse of the team. While sat at the back of this chase group is Sergei Ivanov of the Soviet Union.
Soviet Union?
Well, the ex-Soviet Union now, of course. He recognises his home country now of Russia. All right, well, the boys in the Amstel Gold are heading towards their last rendezvous. It's the climb of the Kauberg, where the finish will this time be right on top. We'll be back in just a moment. Five kilometres from the finish, 3 short miles now, and 15 seconds or so the gap as Vesemund's being left here. This is a mistake by this group, I think, to allow Stefan to do all of the work. He's got to be tired. He's hoping to try and get Sinkovits into the thick of the action. Sinkovits can sprint pretty quickly, but they'll all have to watch out if Perdigurlo sitting at the back gets up for the sprint. He's not a bad climber either, and this race will start at the bottom of the Kauberg. They are gambling, Bob, on arriving at the base of the Kauberg with about a 5 or 6 second gap and hope they can sprint the gap closed up the climb to the line.
14 seconds. Now look at that. Very technical descent before the last climb of the day. Very fast. Frank Schleck up the road, but a big chase now. Stefan Vesemund still on the front. Sergei Ivanov now coming around to help out for the chase. Patrick Sinkovits, if he sees his 2 teammates doing this incredible chase of that man, Frank Schleck, and perhaps his descending skills will tell the difference. He needs at least 15 seconds to stay away, and the attacks are coming now thick and fast on this descent. They know that time is running out, just a few kilometers to go. A couple of Ks of descending, and then the climb to the finish line of the Kauberg. There is Bettini moving up into second place, and it's Sergei Ivanov putting in the last few bits of energy that he has left to try to close the gap to Frank Schleck to give his teammates a chance to win. The gap now down to 12 seconds. That is right on the limit for staying away.
We are looking at Sergei Ivanov now. This breakaway still intact as they chase down into the town of Valkenburg, 3 kilometres from the finish. We run down the crowd line, we make a left turn at the bottom of the climb. There's a massive crowd awaiting to welcome the Amstel Gold Race up the climb for the 3rd time today, but this is the one that will count. The champion of Luxembourg, Frank Schleck, is in sight of his greatest ever moment, but it's not over yet, because I believe that the chase group behind have gambled on the hill itself, proving the downfall of Schleck, and the gap has come down thanks to a big effort by Sergei Ivanov.
Sergei Ivanov doing the chase. The last time we had a chance to look, his teammate Stefan Vesemund also doing a lot of work. Those 2 riders have been very aggressive throughout the day. Let's see how much energy they have compared to our leader, Frank Schleck. Now, just to be getting onto the last climb of the day, and all the marbles. Look at them fan out. Now, Carson Kroon, his teammate, coming through to control the tempo. Michael Bugert still in there. Paolo Bettini and Davide Rebellin, as well as Martin Perdigurlo, the Phonak rider on the back. Here comes an attack now by T-Mobile. That's got to be Sinkovits.
Well, I'm not sure whether it's not Stefan Vesemund again. I think it is, you know. This is his final effort, perhaps, as he starts to go. But there is only Sinkovits left in the group there now. This is amazing here as they start the moves that are going to count again. They hope but I don't know where Stefan Westermann is getting those legs from today. He refuses to go to the line with anybody around him. And again, the pack are gambling. There's too many heads of state here, too many riders, and nobody will put in the death move.
Absolutely. A great move by Westermann. Anticipating the finish, knowing that these riders have already decided to wait to the final climb. He says, that's not for me. I'm going out right now. Bettini waiting for somebody else to pull through. Ivanov won't do it. He's got his teammate now. Frank Schleck, they're in the front. Let's see if Westermann can get across to him. We don't see him in the distance just yet.
As we're just winding our way through Valkenburg here now. This is a famous Dutch holidaying town here. Don't forget there'll be a stage of the Tour de France here this summer as well. Now, Stefan Westermann has sensed this group, is looking at one another. Bettini, you can bet your life, he's gambling on one of his traditional sprints up the hill and hopes he wipes everybody out. Bogart is by tradition a follower rather than an attacker. That's why he's been second 4 times. And now it looks as though Westermann is the only man likely now who can catch Frank Schleck. There's a massive crowd in the town now under the banner. Then we start the climb of the Kauberg as we swing up the hill. Frank Schleck, well, boy, does he deserve the win now. This has been touch and go, but this man deserves it as well. He's been the man of the race.
Absolutely. Now he's looking at the 1K to go banner. Frank Schleck just in front of him. Did you see the grimace on the face of Schleck? Westermann attacking all day. I do not know. This is a very tough last kilometer. Is he going to be able to do it? He's holding on with everything he has. I don't know if he's going to be caught now.
Well, Frank Schleck has been a professional for 6 seasons. He turned pro back in the year 2000. He really shot to form when he got 3rd place in the National Road Race title as a pro, first-year pro. He hasn't yet won a big classic race. Stefan Westermann grits his teeth. He hits the Kauberg for the 3rd time. Frank Schleck knows he won't be safe until he actually crosses that line. It can all go wrong right on the line today. But something tells me that Stefan Westermann isn't going to get caught by the pack. He's such a determined rider. Look at the effort now by this rider from Luxembourg. He climbs like the original angel of the mountains, Charlie Gall, as he heads up towards the top. I think Frank Schleck has done this, and he's going to give CSC what a great continuation of the classics. They won Paris-Roubaix with Cancellara. Now they're going to win the Amstel Gold with Frank Schleck. Bjorn Ries won't know what to say.
Absolutely won't know what to say. He'll be ecstatic with this win by Frank Schleck. Just a few meters to go for Schleck. He can look behind. No Westermann, no Bettini, no Romandie, and there's the finish line.
And there's the zip goes up. It's all over. Here comes the celebrations. They could reach out and touch him half of the way, but it wasn't to be. Frank Schleck of Luxembourg wins the Amstel Gold race, and that is a tremendous result for them because Luxembourg have never had a rider in the first 3 before in the Amstel Gold. And coming up for second place, and what a deserved second place, is the Swiss rider here. And don't forget, he has changed his racing nationality now. Stefan Westermann, after a brilliant round, attack after attack, he gets second across the line. And look at the gap because of the infighting between the heads of state.
A big sprint now coming up for 3rd, the last spot on the podium. You'd think that Bogart could hopefully be up there for the Rabobank squad. And here it is, and there is Bogart. Rebellion chasing him. Bogart, again, leaving it a little bit too late. He won't win the Amstel Gold race, but he will get 3rd place. And it looks like Carson Kroon coming up there for 4th, the teammate of our winner, Frank Schleck.
Well, Bogart has had 4 seconds, a win. Now he's had 2 thirds as well. But if you don't attack, you're not going to win, and the other 2 prove that point.
Yes, absolutely. Westermann, after all those attacks, what an incredible ride he did. Sergei Ivanov doing a lot of work. He's coming in, last man in the breakaway, and here is the chasers coming across. That looks like Balan and one of the Phonak riders, and Fabian Wegman there from the Gerolsteiner squad. That will round out about the top 12 riders.
Well, this was such a difficult race to ride today. You really had to be fit. There was nobody hiding in the shadows of anybody else. If you weren't strong, you could not get into the final selection. But having said that, the selection was so strong, the riders couldn't do much about those 2 attacks. They spent too much time watching each other. Meanwhile, life in the peloton here, as they also climb the Kauberg for the last time. Seeing the CSC riders down there, by the way, reminds us of Sol Raisin, the rider from Georgia, so seriously injured a couple of weeks ago. Well, the good news is he's on the road to recovery now, and again, all our best wishes going to him from OLN. But there's the man who has won the day here, Frank Schleck, the first Luxembourger to ever break into a podium position, and he starts where he means to go on. in number 1. Right, well, let's have a look then at the result of the 41st Amstel Gold race. A win, a first time ever by Luxembourger. Frank Schleck takes it for Team CSC. In second place, Stefan Westermann. Third, Michael Bogart. That's his second ever third place finish, by the way. Fourth, his former teammate Carsten Crew, now is CSC. Patrick Sinkovits, among the favourites today, got fifth. David Rebellin, Miguel Martin Perdigero, Paolo Bettini among our favourites. He rode really well. He got eighth in the end. The top 10 completed by Sergei Ivanov, and the other of the pre-race favourites, by the way, Alessandro Valverde. He wasn't too far off the pace, just dropped back a bit on that climb up towards the line. Well, let's remind ourselves now of the John Hancock performance moment, and yes, of course, it was that late attack by Frank Schleck. He tried a couple of times before to reach Westermann in a small group. That failed, but when he saw his moment, he went, and nobody reacted. He came into Valkenburg with a lead of about 15 seconds. They gambled on catching him on the climb. They made a mistake, and Frank Schleck came home a very clear winner. That was our John Hancock performance moment. Now let's go down to the podium. And there he is, only his third win as a professional. His first win, by the way, a very small race in San Marino. That was before anybody knew him. They certainly know Frank Schleck now, the first ever Luxembourg rider. Just 24 hours after his 26th birthday, he gets the win here in South Limburg. Alongside him is Stefan Westermann and, of course, the evergreen Michael Bogart. Well, that wrapped it up on this Easter Sunday for another Cyclism Sunday. But next Sunday, watch out, because we have a double-header for you. We'll begin in Belgium, OLN's coverage of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the oldest of the classics, and it will bring out the Tour de France favourite, Alexander Vinokourov, who will return to try and defend his LBL title. Plus, we'll bring you highlights of the midweek Flèche Wallonne. That will see Danilo De Luca in the action there, and it's where he laid his foundations to winning the Pro Tour title a year ago. That's Cyclism Sundays on OLN, next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And don't forget to sign up today at olntv.com for exclusive commercial-free live streaming video of the Giro d'Italia, as well as other world-class cycling events. Well, our congratulations to the Luxembourger Frank Schleck. He's on the bottom rung of a ladder, and he's still got plenty of years ahead of him as a pro bike rider. Up here next on OLN, it's Ultimate Playground. Until next Sunday, though, for Bob Roll, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye. Yes, 2006 marks the 60th Tour de Romandie. The event may have reached pensionable age, but there are no bus passes on offer to the competitors this week. This traditional curtain raiser to the Grand Tour season begins upon the labyrinth streets of Geneva. Over the next 6 days, the world's finest cyclists will battle it out across French-speaking Switzerland. They'll pass through some of the most picturesque scenery in the world. The current Pro Tour leader, Alessandro Valverde, is hoping to continue his fine form this season. And the exciting Australian talent, Cadel Evans, is looking to make his mark. While Germany's Jan Ullrich, winner of the Tour de France in 1997, is just starting his season and hoping to justify his status as one of the Tour favourites. The prologue of this year's Tour is a course of just 3.4 kilometres, so obviously the specialist sprinters very much the fore this time out. Lots of twists and turns to be negotiated on the streets of Geneva. Excitement is guaranteed. The prologue is a kind of hors d'oeuvre, and it decides the first leader of the Tour. This is a big tryout now for the upcoming Tour of Italy and indeed July's Tour de France, and one of the big favourites for the prologues in those events is Brad McGee of Australia. he makes his start. So McGee is down the ramp and a likely favourite for the day. He sure is fast over this type of a distance, but the course may be a little bit technical for him today. Narrow streets around this old city of Geneva. And this the only French-speaking full stage tour on the international calendar. This is the arrival of Oscar Pereiro, stage winner in the Tour de France last year. Not an absolute ace at the time trial. Albacini's time down there, you can see. At 4:30 and pushing the time of Pereiro now, and he's going to get a better time. No, he slipped away, so he drops into second place. It's a long way up this finishing straight here. So Albacini comes in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. They'll have to knock a few seconds off that to win today, I think. The riders seeded by their team managers, and the hoped best riders will be the late starters of the field. Little sign of the effort there. This is McGee still out on course, and McGee doing the best time at the checkpoint so far, as expected, I think. These short little climbs, they're a bit stabby though, they hurt the legs. McGee is used to them. He was the man that took out the prologue time trial in the Tour de France. Oh, and a little bit of a wheel slide on that right-hander. Fortunately, rain not around now, but the road's a little bit damp. Crest and on the descent now towards the line, then up towards the long finishing straight. But Brad McGee of Australia, he's the only Australian to have worn the leader's jersey in all of the Grand Tours, France, Spain and Italy. Now, Laszlo Bedrogi, champion time trialist from Hungary, well settled into his French Crédit Agricole team. Big man, this is his sort of a race today. Now, coming into the home straight here, Brad McGee, and his time is way up on the still the best time of Oscar Pereiro. Pereiro's form looking good for the upcoming Grand Tours, but it's not going to compare with McGee. McGee straightens up now, he knows he's going to get the best time, then he'll have to sit it out. There's still some big names to follow behind him, but he's done what he can do. To be expected this, I think, and Bradley McGee will be pretty happy by this. Hits the line, best time. Yes, and best time by 3.3 seconds. The Pro Tour leader, wearing the leader's jersey, Alejandro Valverde, the man of the moment as far as Spain is concerned. No Spanish cyclist, by the way, has won this race since Abrahamo Olano over 10 years ago. McGee's time, and Alberto Contador, well known to Bradley McGee after they've both ridden down in the Jacobs Creek Tour down under in Australia in the years gone by. Contador still a very young man and a high finish in this race last year. He started off well, 20th place at the moment, 4:39. You won't be too unhappy with that. This is one of the great white hopes for the Liberty Seguros team from Spain, managed by Manolo Saiz. He says, give the youngsters a chance, they're coming well, but this man is coming very well now. Alejandro Valverde, he was slightly up on Bradley McGee's time at the halfway check, but we're talking hundredths of a second, so it's all going to be in the sprint finish this. The white jersey of the Pro Tour leader, winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche Wallonne. The two big classics in Belgium just on a week ago. And now he's going to try and hold that form for the first big stage race of the year, for him anyway. Valverde making the twists and turns down towards the finishing line here in Geneva. He hasn't missed a beat so far. Look at the way he's riding these corners, clipping off the edge of the barriers, outriding off. A photographer on the motorbike there, actually, as he pulls out of that corner terrifically quickly. Valverde is the rider they expect to do something in the Tour de France this year. He was the man that beat Lance Armstrong to the top of Courchevel to win the stage there. Now this is Chris Horner of the United States on great form. His new team, De Vitaman Lotto, the team, by the way, still looking for the first European win of the year. Horner's now 34 and a half, and you think he was about 22. His enthusiasm is that great. Back down towards the line. This is the arrival of Alejandro Valverde. His time is desperately close to Bradley McGee at the same point. It's 300 metres to go. It's going to take him all of 30 seconds, I would think, as he comes up towards the line. Bradley McGee might survive this one. As Valverde turns for home now, it just shows you the form this Spanish rider's got. He can time trial, he can sprint, and he can climb. If you can do those three things, then you've got to be a candidate for final victory. It's going to be close for the prologue, though. McGee just on the line. He comes up, and Valverde has done
it. 4:27.9. That is going to take some beating. And I'm not too sure who is left now to match that time. So Alejandro Valverde of the Case Dapon team continues this great form coming off the classics of the early season. Here's Sabadelli settling into his rhythm, searching for the form that might win him a third, a Giro d'Italia, which starts soon after this race finishes. On the same Discovery team that Lance Armstrong still looks after, although he's no longer a racing cyclist these days. Armstrong concentrating on taking part in the New York Marathon at the end of the summer. Lots of shouts of Paolo Sabadelli. They call him Il Falco because of the way he can go downhills. Well, there's no downhills on today's stage, so he's going to have to put up with going up the slight rises on this very twisty course in Geneva. It's a familiar one to the riders in the Tour of Romandie. His times are not bad though out on the core, and that was a bit of an overshoot. He almost hit the barriers there. His times, amazingly, are matching that of McGee and Valverde at the moment. Now, we saw what Valverde did to McGee's time, and this is Paolo Sabadelli. He's got just under half a minute to get home. If he's matching Valverde's time, he'd be very happy with that. But you know, he's turned to that 300-metre banner, and he's going to be desperately close. It's all or nothing on the sprint finish. Flick the gears up into the highest one as he comes off that final bend. 4:27.95 is his target. It is going to be what could be a great result for the Discovery rider, and I can tell you, not what we expected at all. Paolo Sabadelli hits the line, best time by 64 hundredths of a second. Can you believe that? Well, I bet you Paolo Sabadelli doesn't, because that was never on the offing today. This rider has suddenly found his form as the big tours are coming his way, and he's going to be a favourite for the Giro d'Italia now. Same time as Valverde, 4 seconds back to McGee, 7 back to Pereiro, with Droghi at 7 as well. So Sabadelli is firing for Discovery Channel. A good start. And that's going to put the team on the defence now as we start stage 1 on the open highway of the Tour de Romandie. It heads out from Payerne. It's 169 kilometres and goes through Estavayer-le-Lac, onto Lucerne, Sarzen, Courcelles, Sassel, Vuisson, back by the lakeside, and finally finishing back in Payerne. Not too much in the way of climbing, you know, but it still is a very demanding course. So the main field beginning to roll out, and already under a little bit of pressure at the front, and it was Dmitry Konishev who made the most significant break and had established a sizable lead with only 52 kilometres to go. He looked pretty comfortable. Konishev, the first Russian rider, formerly the Soviet Union, to ever achieve a major award in the Tour de France. He won the King of the Mountains. Now one of the oldest riders in the peloton at 40 years of age. The main pack are being shepherded along by De Vitam and Lotto. Their concern was to try and work out whether indeed they could get their sprinter Robbie McEwen to show his legs at the finishing line. This wasn't the day to try and defend your race lead. Paolo Sabadelli safely in the peloton, and with around 20 kilometres left to go, the big pack of riders finally had Dmitry Konishev in their sights. It had been a brave move by Dmitry, riding out his final year as a professional, his team coming in on a wild card. All the rest of the teams in this race are members of the Pro Tour. No one in any hurry to get alongside Konishev, because they know once you catch a breakaway, then the attacks will come again. Last few kilometres runs down the coast. Watch out for the crosswinds, as the peloton today more or less has continued all together. Just that one significant breakaway by Dmitry Konishev. And there's been a crash down there, the fanning out of the riders. A number of riders. This is the danger when the big pack continues like this. A touch of wheels, somebody goes down. It looks as though nobody's injured. Just one rider left with a lonely journey up to the finishing line. He'll have just 19 kilometres to ride by himself, unless he catches up, of course. That's unlikely now because the pressure's on at the front. The riders believing they can still slip away from the field, and there's a fine athletic mechanic for you. Well, try as they did, that breakaway group have been reeled in now. We're just on 3 kilometres from the line. The whole field are together. You can see for yourself. Black sky, quite heavy rain, and very dangerous roads now. The riders will watch those white stripes because they usually prove pretty slippery. And this is a very difficult switchback on themselves now as they race down towards the line, the end of nearly 200 kilometres. And we really only got that one breakaway attempt by Dmitry Konishev. He was swept up. The rest were just living on hope. Now, is it a chance, perhaps, for Robin McEwen, who's back in the peloton, having missed out on the classics, to try and get De Vitamin Lotto's first win of the year? He really is the best sprinter in this race, and I'm sure he knows it. But you know, if you're hiding in that big pack right now, you've got all the spray of those back wheels in your face. It is very, very difficult to see exactly just where you are going. And it looks as though leaky gas here, possibly for Enrico Gasparotto. They're the boys in the lime green jerseys. The idea here is the so-called domestiques, the helpers, will set the pace in the hope they can protect their sprinter, who will break out in the last 200 or 300 metres and prove the fastest. That's the theory. It is a sprinter's delight, this finish just now. And it's certainly for Gasparotto on the left of the road, the leaky gas team from Italy. On the right of the road, De Vitamin Lotto riding for McEwen. And I can't see either of those two sprinters in the picture yet. But you can see there's an awful lot of movement going on there now. Now, Team Milram are in here, but not with their top sprinter, Pataki. They'll look for somebody else, perhaps. And it looks the psychological battle at the moment being won here by the Leaker Gas team. Sharp left-hand bend coming up here. Brake hard and take it easy on that corner. The horrible feeling when it rains like this, as you apply your brakes, you squeeze the film of water against the rim and you actually accelerate rather than slow down. It's not a nice feeling at this stage of a race. There's probably no more than half a dozen riders dreaming of winning this stage right now. The rest are following to the line. That's the 1,000 metres kite, the famous Flamme Rouge. And now is the time to look for the sprinters down there, and I can't see, as always, Robin McEwen. He has, in fact I can now, just tucking in the bottom, but he has no teammates in front of him here. It looks as though Gasparotto has got his team well organised. They're still leading out as they come up on the right of the road here. The Rabobank rider, I think, is Pedro Arrio off to the left of our picture, dodging in and out in the orange jersey. Little bit of a chicane there now. McEwen is trying to get on terms as he moves up into fourth wheel. De Vitamin Lotto, remember, without a win, in fact fifth wheel. That's Pedro Arrio in third wheel now. He's moved up. Not normally seen as a very fast sprinter at all here. But as they're lining up for the finish now, it is still Gasparotto in the best place there. In second place, Pedro Arrio moving up on the left of our picture. A little bit of shoving and pulling on the old jerseys. That was Lonzaretto, I think. And still no move coming now as we look over to the centre of the picture. McEwen is now coming out, as always, from nowhere. Robbie McEwen is looking for the finish here, and a victory, a rare one indeed in Europe. He gets it for De Vitamin Lotto. The man who crossed second there, Mirko Lonzetto from Milram, has never won a race in his life. Boy, he came close there. Let's have a look at the result. McEwen, everybody the same time, so no change in the overall lead. Bernardi in third place. Gasparotto was third, he finished fourth. But for Robbie McEwen, this was a big result for him. He's back on sprinting form, right on cue for the upcoming Giro d'Italia. It's his first stage win here in Romandie. Paolo Sabadelli hangs on to the lead for the first full day of racing. His time gained in the prologue will remain unchanged, so he's locked equal with Valverde.
Onwards to stage 2, the longest stage of the Tour de Romandie, and this will take us all around to Porrentruy. It's a long day in the saddle for the riders, 172 kilometres. It will pass through Delemont and Bourignon, Micourt, and over the famous Col de la Croix, before finally arriving back at home, and the very terrain for them to enjoy. None of the climbs, I suppose, that severe, but at this time of the year, it's a big test for many of these riders. The Col de la Croix, for example, is a first category climb. And then after you go over the top, it's all downhill to the finish. Well, not really. And sad to say too that the weather hasn't improved much after the finish yesterday, with Robbie McEwen taking out the sprint. The weather today continues rather wet and dreary. The grey buildings around the area looking quite drab, and the peloton hanging pretty much together just at the moment. But the first attack coming from the top French rider on a new team this year, the French AG2R team, Christophe Moreau. Well, for a while, Christophe was almost, well, he was the race leader on the road. He had a lead of nearly 5 minutes, but it's all over now. I'm 36 kilometres out from the line, and this is the advanced pack here. Not as big as it was, but the yellow jersey in there. Now we're looking here at Roger Beauchat, and with him is David Loosely. They built a small lead, and they're working well together here as they start the climbs. The undulations down towards the finish. That's Loosely in the Lamprey squad, the Italian rider. And 201 means that Roger Beauchat is the leader here of the LPR team, another Italian squad, given the wildcard entry into the event. Well, this is 8 kilometres further down the road now, and the peloton about to wipe out Beauchamp and Loosely. So the climbs themselves, there's the yellow jersey, you can see it quite clearly now, of Paolo Savidelli, and he's in his terrain because he is a climber, and I suppose his main benefit as a top cyclist is his event is the way he can go downhill. They call him Il Falco, so he's got this race under control at the moment. Looking very strong. Team Discovery Channel are going to be happy with his riding. 5 kilometres to go. These few riders here just a handful of seconds ahead of the pack. And this looks like an attack here from De Vietem and Lotto. Well, I think this is Chris Horner. Chris Horner going clear of the field. Well, he's got great form from Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Chris Horner, where he had a great result also in Flèche Wallonne, and he's split the field.
Well, this is a desperate ride for the finish now after the top of the Col de la Fuie. These riders here trying to get away, and there could even be a change of leadership unless Paolo Savidelli gets on with the chase here. There's Savidelli riding well at the front. Alejandro Valverde is also here. This is a very tight little group of favourites now as they start to line up towards the end of the day. Just 4 kilometres left to ride, but it's a bit of a grind up towards the line. It's not an easy finish, this. Well, Chris Horner having the ride of his life at the moment and the form of his life. He's enjoying being on the De Vietem and Lotto team. They got their first win in Europe yesterday. Horner's 34.5 years of age now. He doesn't look it, I must say. But what a classic season he's had so far. 20th in the Amstel Gold race, 16th in the Flèche Wallonne, and 8th just a few days ago in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And his team manager believes the big win is just around the corner, and that might be the case now. There's a reaction from the field. And it's all in desperation. Dangling out front there on that top of the bend is Chris Horner. Well, the United States have had their moments in the Tour of Romandie in years gone by. They don't get too many. Still plenty of reaction coming from the field, though. 2.5 kilometres to go. A little bit more help required at the front. Well, there's nobody at the front right now as the gap has split up, and Horner has gone over the top of this little climb, and he's more or less kept hold of his few seconds. Now, normally you would have no chance at this stage of the race, but it's not the whole pack chasing him just now. It's just a select group of riders, and in that group of riders is Paolo Savidelli, the leader of the Tour. Yes, he's done everything right so far, but can he contain the attacks here? Remember, some of these riders are just a blink of the eyelid behind him in the overall lead. That's an attack, and that looks like the former champion of Switzerland again, Alexander Moos. He's been riding well this week. Well, he might. He knows these roads better than most, and 2 kilometres to go. 9 seconds off the yellow jersey. He'll be thinking more of getting those 9 seconds than winning the stage, I think. As he pushes on, he's still looking to pick up Chris Horner here. And Horner is doing the time trial of his life because he's dangling in front of these riders, and they are desperate to catch him. They're hardly letting him go, are they? And these long sweeping roads don't favour a lone breakaway. They can see him all of the time. They've got rid of the main peloton today. There's no doubt now that the final winner of this event will be one of this small group of riders. These are the strong men this week. There's that switch back again as we continue. This time, though, it's for keeps down towards the finishing line. 1 kilometre to go. And Chris Horner, he's won a lot of races. People think he hasn't won much in his career, but he hasn't spent a lot of time in Europe. And in fact, he's won 62 races as a professional since he turned pro back in 1995. And I think he might count this one as his best to at least go up alongside his 6th-stage win in the Tour of Switzerland last year. Seems the Swiss roads are good to him, but will they continue to be kind now? They're dry. Well, the sky's dry, the roads are still a bit damp. As he runs up towards the finish now, I don't think they're going to get Chris Horner. This will be a remarkable victory for him, and one he's going to cherish. Another victory in Switzerland here, as Horner has done the time trial of his life. As he races up to the line now, this will be win number 63 for Chris. They're not going to catch him. That left-hander will slow them down. It's a little bit slippery, especially over those cobblestones. Horner's in. This is going to be a well-deserved win, and can you believe it? A 1-2 in days 1 and 2 for De Vitamin Lotto. Suddenly, fortune has changed. Second place here, and coming up to the line now, on the line. Second, Contador, I think it is, on second place there. Savadelli safe, but you know, there'll be a time gap there, and he could well have lost his overall lead. We'll have to wait for the judges on that one. Well, there's the result, the 4-second gap. So Horner will be the leader here. Jörg Jatzki was who was second, Moose third, Valverde fourth, and Paolo Savadelli fifth. Chris Horner now leads the race as well, 7 seconds ahead of Paolo Savadelli, while he's still locked in that second place with Alejandro Valverde. Far from safe, but how nice is it to be the race leader of the Tour of Romandie? So Chris's team gets 2 wins in as many days. Stage 3 now, a mere 164 kilometres. We move on from Bienne to Les Uns via Auvergne, Voiron and Aigle. Aigle, by the way, the headquarters of the world body, the Union Cycliste Internationale. Plenty for the climbers to look forward to over a rugged course that will fully test any tiring legs, that's for sure. Joining the action here, 25 kilometres down towards the finish, slightly less, 5:56. There is a breakaway on. The 2 riders in the breakaway are Wouter Weiland of Belgium, rides for the Quick Step in the blue jersey to the right of our picture, and Jose Arredondo of the Liberty Seguros. It's strange in world cycling because the teams don't converse, yet they often come out in similar colours for the year. We used to have a abundance of yellow, now it seems to be blue. Well, we're hanging on to that 5-minute 50-second lead. It's gone out, in fact, now to 1:31, just on 10 kilometres from the finish. The peloton here containing Alberto Contador there, looking over his shoulder, seeing where anybody going to take up the chase. Everybody looking a little bit confused with each other here. They're not too willing to put in the final push to bring back that breakaway. 1.5 minutes and just under 10 to go is quite a long distance. They've got a chance here. Well, this is Jose Arredondo, still riding pretty solidly. And the field getting bigger and bigger, and that's because that little breakaway group messing about. They've reformed here. There's the yellow jersey on the shoulders of the American, Chris Horner, and he's still in with a shout here. He said he didn't feel too good towards the end yesterday. Well, we'd never have guessed that, would we? Oscar Sevilla, who promised so much in the early part of his career, it's never really come to fruition. He's now a team man of Jan Ullrich on T-Mobile, and it looks as though Redondo has slipped backwards a little bit now as the field are beginning to close in. 5.5 kilometres to go. And at 4 kilometres to go, this is an attack by Alberto Contador after his teammate loosened them up. Sevilla was first to reach him. He's now put in the perfect counter-attack. And just look at the chase group here. There is no reaction yet. Contador is one of these great hopes of the future for Liberty Seguros. He's only 23 years of age, yet he's been a professional since 2003. He's already notched himself 6 wins as a pro, and at last the sun beginning to peek through on the mountains of Switzerland. You can see by the gear, and he doesn't appear to be going very fast, does he? This is a nasty climb up to the line, and he's got 3.5 kilometres of it, largely uphill towards the finish. No reaction from the field. Now, in that chase group is Cadel Evans, Alejandro Valverde. Sabadelli, though, is out of the race, wisely dropping out, said he wasn't feeling well, suspected bronchitis. So it's become a bit of a less closer battle now. Valverde's got his chance if he can do anything about it. And that attack there is coming from Sergio Gilberti of Italy. And that's strung them out a little bit now. Sevilla hanging on at the back of the group at 1,000 metres to the top of the climb, and then it's a charge of another 1,000 metres to the line. There goes Giselle Berti, but he's going to be reeled in, the Milram rider, as we pan around the corner. Still waiting for spring to spring here in this part of Switzerland. Getting up to the dizzy heights of the hills. And soon over the top, and there's the top. We'll see the bottom part of this course too. Cadel Evans is fourth rider in line. Valverde is sitting on his wheel in that white jersey. They seem to be the two top men in this group now. Contador is about to say, well, I'm a top man as well, as he's now into the finishing straights here now. This will be a win for Contador, his first of the year. It's a question of whether the time gaps will mean he will take the leader's yellow jersey. Oh, those legs are aching now. He would just love to sit down, but it'll be replaced, that grimace, with a smile in a matter of yards. Wise man, just making sure nobody's coming at him. It's victory for sure. Is it a yellow jersey? And the crowd, well, I was going to say you've got to hand it to them. Perhaps I shouldn't, but up to the line they come. As Alberto Contador takes the victory here. Spanish rider doing what he does best in the mountains. Well-deserved win. Took his opportunity superbly, about 5k out. And this, in fact, is Belmonte, I think. No, this is, they just caught Giselberto off to the right of our picture. That's Cadel Evans who's finishing it off. And he's being chased by Alejandro Valverde here. And Valverde's going to have a go at him. So these boys are high on the overall. Where's Horner? But Valverde gets second, Evans gets third, and there's Yaxter again, but it's his teammate who's won. He'll be happy. Giselberti hangs on for fifth. No sign of Chris Horner there in that group. He's lost his lead. Well, the day's win first. Contador, 24 seconds over Valverde, and Evans, 26 over Jörg Jax. Giselberti at 30, and no signs in the top 10 of Chris Horner. What a shame. And there's confirmation that Horner lost time in the end and has given the overall lead now to Alberto Contador. So another change of leadership. And that's what the organisers say makes a great stage race, is every day we have a new leader. And Contador's lead now will be a little bit more, I think, than Chris Horner had. So maybe he's setting himself up for the win in a couple of days. We'll see. Certainly the men he's going to have to beat, Alejandro Valverde and Cadel Evans. They finish very strongly behind him.
All smiles for Alberto Contador, leading the race now by just 16 seconds. Stage 4 sees the Tour touching down in Sion. It's 127 kilometres, passing through Mayon de Chamazon, Vaillancourt-Viage, Crans-Montana, before heading back into Sion. The distance might be slightly less daunting, but the climbs are still very demanding, and they range from 500 to 1,500 metres above sea level. And there he is, patrolling the peloton with his team all around him. Not surprisingly, the Liberty Seguros boys defending now for Alberto Contador. And you know, with a couple of days to go, this man could be a candidate for victory. He'll be a little bit worried about the final time trial, but he can handle himself in a race against the watch. Today, he'll try just to defend his scant lead. We're at 37 kilometres to go now, and there's a lead of 2 minutes and 2 seconds. There is a breakaway, and the man out front, there he is, Garate. The national road race champion of Spain, and by the way, a great rider when it comes to the Giro. Finished 5th in the Giro d'Italia last year. He's had a 10th, a 4th and a 20th in his last 4 attempts. That's not bad riding, and he'll be up there again this year rather, I'm sure. But not today, I'm afraid. It looks like Juan Manuel Garate is being brought to heel here by a little group, which is now thinned out. They've had a number of climbs up the Grand Prix of the Mountains today, the Prix La Gruyère. This is it, and this could provide a springboard towards the end now. 36 kilometres left to go to the finish. Now, that field trying to organise something here, but it looks as though with 3 kilometres to go, Andrei Kashikin has a chance here. He's had one win already this year. He won the 6th stage of the Paris-Nice race. Overall, he's only had 2 wins in his life. But he's still one of these riders who you really expect to do well. Tremendous talent, and he's on the Liberty Seguros team, remember. And I'm surprised, considering that they have the leader on the team, that the other teams have let a teammate of Alberto Contador get away like this. But this has taken an awful lot of pressure off Contador, because he can sit there and watch the others doing the counter moves now. What a great position to be in. And it looks as though Contador will lead this race by the end, and he'll be the first man this week to have defended his overall lead. 10 seconds, they're saying, back to the group containing the yellow jersey of Alberto Contador and his teammate racing for gold. 2 kilometres to go. Tick another one off. Kashikin comes from Kazakhstan. Had his 26th birthday just on 5 weeks ago. Using all of the road here to get the shortest way round wherever possible, swinging now towards the last couple of kilometres, 1,500 metres or so to the line. He deserves this. He's been out in front a long way today, shed everybody that dared to join him. Having said that, I'm not too sure he's going to see the finish without them, because they are closing in rapidly now. Cadel Evans is in this group, so too Yatsk, who's done so well so far. Oscar Sevilla is here, Contador, the yellow jersey, Christophe Moreau is in that breakaway, he is here as well. This is a group of only about a dozen riders, and it's going to be a desperate finish for them too. They may not even get time to prepare a sprint here, because he's dangling right up to the line. I might get it. Andrei Kashikin. Liberty Seguros have really swung this race in their favour for the moment now, because they're giving the team leader a free ride. He's watching the chase from afar and might even try a sprint, because if you can see the yellow jersey, there he is, riding second or third wheel and trying desperately to break up the reaction. Kashikin this, and he's given up. He's seen them so close. I think I'd have kept going. And a little bit of sign language, I'll leave it to you to decide what was said there, but there's an attack immediately gone from Contador. You don't see that very often, the maillot jaune having a go towards the line. Well, that you can call a cheeky little move, as Alberto Contador's tried to finish off what his teammate has set up. Contador first around the corner, surely he's not going to win. That's Cadel Evans has got up to him. And Jörg Yatsk has got up, and so too has Valverde. These are the big boys. Contador hesitated, he slipped into the back room. Also up there, Phonak have got a rider, not too sure who it is, but I would suspect it's Alexander Moose this time in 5th place. Now Jörg Yatsk doesn't want to lead this, he's looking over his shoulder. Cadel Evans doesn't want to lead it either. Cadel's not a great sprinter. This is an attack by Leaky Gas, who's forcing the pace now. Dario Cioni has gone off to the right of our road. He can finish well. Former mountain biker, speaks fluent English. He was born in Reading, Great Britain, but has lived all his life in Italy and can't even remember where Reading is. But Cioni comes up towards the line now. It's going to be a desperate sprint. He's going to get overhauled here. And right on the line, it looks to me as though Valverde's sticking his nose in. They're struggling all of the way. Alexander Moose has got the move on the left. Alexander Moose, the former champion in Switzerland, looks like he might hold this, but no, Valverde's coming. And Valverde proves yet again what a great sprinter. Cadel Evans on the left. Valverde gets it, Moose will be second, Evans third, and Jörg Yatsk will get 4th place, and probably the first 10 riders will all get the same time. The fairy tale period of Alejandro Valverde goes on and on. Now he's got a big win here in the Romandie race, but the race lead will stay for a day at least now on the shoulders of Alberto Contador, with the time trial to come. So to the 5th and final stage of the Tour de Romandie in Lausanne. It's a time trial, a race of truth around the city streets, but it's much longer than the prologue. It's over 20 kilometres, starting and finishing at the Olympic Stadium.
tight twists and turns to be negotiated along the way. And there couldn't be a closer finish to this race either. After working their way through the mountains, the sprinters, though, will be happy to be involved. Now, Jan Ullrich, who's seen nothing of him all week, that's because he's been left behind by the big field. But he was to finish this race 50 minutes behind in 115th position. A little bit of training still required, Jan. The concentration now on the face of Cadel Evans, because he knows a great time trial. He could be the winner of this race. He's the Commonwealth Games champion in Manchester in the time trial as well. This is Vladimir Milojevich coming in here for Leaky Gas. There's the standard best time, Leif Hoster at the moment, who had a great classic season for Discovery Channel, but won't challenge for the overall lead today. This is the start of Valverde. He needs just 6 seconds off Contador. Contador will start last, of course, to take race victory. Beautiful scenery here around Lausanne. Had a stage finish at the Tour de France here once. I remember won by Eric Decker. But we swung away from the lake now by the race leader, Alberto Contador. He needs an inspired finish today to keep that leader's yellow jersey. Let's have a look how Severe is going. He's slipping away a little bit now as he drops there into 8th place on the line with a big name still to finish. Takes a good look at the timekeeper's board. Here's Jord Jatsk, former winner of Paris-Nice, another man that's on this brilliant Liberty Seguros team this week. He himself is 4th overall, despite the work he's done to keep Contador in the race lead. Little shot of the gears they're using there, 54.11, that's a pretty high gear. They won't be using that up the hill here. Andrei Kashikin coming over at the 17-kilometre point check in 6th place there. And here's Chris Horner on the finish too. Another good ride out of Chris, 9th, but he'll be happy with his week. A little wry smile, I think, from the man from the other side, the west coast of America. Now here we have Alejandro Valverde. He knows that a good ride today will take away those few seconds he's behind overall. He's looking for just 6 on Contador. And he will win this race and complete a great purple patch of his career. Cadel Evans also looks as though he's riding well, sitting in 3rd place overall. He can time trial. He once got a bronze medal as a junior. Goes back more than 10 years, I have to say, in the Junior World Championships for Cadel Evans. And Kashikin rivaling the time there of Bobby Julich, who still sits in 2nd place, the former Paris-Nice winner and Criterium International. Now he's dropping away a little bit. Former world time trial champion Hans Sharp. And that's a good ride by Andrei Kashikin. He should be happy with that. On the cobblestones now, a chance to have a look how Cadel Evans is going here. Bedrogi's best time here at the moment. Cadel Evans is going to be right on. Evans has gone through, best time. Is he going to steal this race on the very last day, in the very last meters of the time trial? Only one Australian's ever won this race, the great Phil Anderson, and Cadel Evans setting himself up, but we don't know yet what Alberto Contador is doing out there, and he's not a bad rider against the watch. And when you put on a race leader's jersey, as Sean Kelly once said, you ride like 2 men. Here's Valverde. As he comes up now, he's away from it here. No chance compared to Cadel Evans. That's good news for Evans, so it looks as though it's Evans or Contador now to win the race and possibly the stage. Here's Evans now as he races towards the line. 24 seconds is what he needs at least over Contador to walk away with the final maillot jaune. And he won't know the answer to that until Contador comes in, and he's 2 men behind him on course. Now this will be our best chance of seeing what's going on. And Contador has slipped away here, 38 seconds. Cadel Evans is going to win this race, and he's going to win the time trial. And that will be a huge result for the Australian at this stage of his career. Contador on the very last stage, on the shorter stage of just 20 kilometres, he's going to lose that overall lead. There's the situation virtual on the right of your picture. If it finished now, Evans would win by a single second. I think Evans has got more idea of winning by more than that there as he gets out of the saddle and kicks again. This, I think, has been the finest time trial Cadel Evans has ever done. He fights on over the top of the rise and heads up towards the line. It's going to be best time. Best time is still held by Leif Hoster of Discovery Channel, the Belgian rider. Evans of De Vitam and Lotto. What a great week it's been for De Vitam and Lotto. They hadn't won a stage of any event in Europe this year until this week, and now I think it's safe to say they're going to have won 3. Cadel Evans gets the best time by 21 seconds. He's still got to await for the arrival of Alberto Contador. And he's slowing down on these climbs. Well, for once, the yellow jersey has not inspired him. 2 kilometres to go. He's felt the pressure today. He's had a brilliant race, and he is only 23 and a half years of age. This is Valverde, the only 2 riders behind Cadel. Both are slower at 17 kilometres. Valverde challenging only 5th place here of the former world time trial champion Sergei Honchar. Now it's going down to Van den Broek and away. This hasn't been a good ride by Valverde. This might be his weakest discipline. He'll have to improve on this for the Tour de France. Valverde finishes 13th best time, and still 1 rider to finish. No victory this week for him. And here he comes. Contador now has not done the ride of his life here. Cadel Evans has. He's on the finishing line watching the clock. He's already celebrating because this rider's outside of his time as he races towards the line now. Alberto Contador will slip off the leader's board. He finishes only 7th. Cadel Evans has won the race. That is an amazing result for the Australian. Only the 2nd Australian ever to win this race after Phil Anderson. Let's have a look at the stage result first. Cadel Evans winning ahead of Hoster of Belgium. Bobby Julich back on form. And look at that, Contador only 7th. I'm not surprised he's happy. Yes, he's finished 3rd in this race before. But now he's won it. And he's delighted to see the form coming back. He's beaten some of the big men he could next meet in the Tour de France, like Alejandro Valverde. Alberto Contador rode well. It wasn't quite well enough. And what about Cadel Evans? What's the chances now of him being a favourite for the Tour de France in July? Hope you've enjoyed the show. Phil Liggett saying goodbye for now.